Victoria Sullivan smoothed down her emerald green dress one more time, trying to calm the nervous flutter in her stomach. At 34, she'd told herself she was past the anxiety of first dates, but sitting alone in the elegant restaurant with Christmas lights twinkling all around her, she felt every bit as uncertain as she had at 20. The reservation was under the name James Hendricks. Her friend Rachel had set this up, insisting that James was perfect for her. Kind, successful, ready to settle down. Victoria had been hesitant. After her divorce 3 years ago, she'd thrown herself into her work as a pediatric nurse, convincing herself that caring for other people's children was fulfilling enough. But lately, the silence of her apartment had grown louder, the holidays harder to face alone. She checked her phone. 7:15. He was 15 minutes late. The waiter had already refilled her water twice, each time with a sympathetic smile that made Victoria's cheeks burn. At 7:30, her phone buzzed. "I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to work out. Rachel mentioned you were divorced. I'm really looking for someone without that kind of baggage. I hope you understand. Best wishes." Victoria stared at the message, the words blurring slightly as tears pricked her eyes. She blinked them back quickly, forcing herself to breathe slowly. She shouldn't be surprised. This had happened before, in different variations. Too old, too focused on work, too damaged from her failed marriage. Each rejection, another confirmation that she'd somehow missed. Her chance at the life she'd imagined. She was gathering her coat, trying to maintain her dignity as she prepared to leave, when a small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, miss. Why do you look so sad?" Victoria looked down to find a little girl standing beside her table, maybe 4 or 5 years old. She had blonde hair pulled up in 2 playful pigtails, wearing a red velvet dress with a white collar that made her look like a tiny Christmas angel. In her arms, she clutched a small teddy bear. Her blue eyes were bright with genuine concern, the kind of pure empathy only children possess. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm okay," Victoria managed, forcing a smile. "Shouldn't you be with your family?" "I'm with my family." "That's my daddy over there." The little girl pointed to a nearby table where a man sat with an older couple. He was looking their way now, concern crossing his handsome features. "But I saw you and you looked lonely, like you needed a friend." Before Victoria could respond, the man was approaching their table. He was probably in his late 30s, with kind brown eyes and an apologetic expression. His dark suit was well-tailored but unpretentious, and when he smiled, it reached his eyes in a way that suggested genuine warmth. "I'm so sorry," he said, gently taking the little girl's hand. "Chloe, you can't just approach strangers like that." "But Daddy, she's sad." "I can help. I'm good at making people feel better." "You always say so." Victoria felt something crack inside, her chest at the earnestness in the child's voice. "It's all right, really." "She's very sweet." The man studied Victoria's face, and she saw the moment he registered the dampness in her eyes. The coat half on, the empty chair across from her. Understanding softened his expression. "Bad date?" he asked quietly. The kindness in his voice, combined with everything else, made Victoria's careful composure crumble. "He didn't even show up. Sent a text saying I had too much baggage." She laughed, but it came out shaky. "Sorry, I don't know why I'm telling you this." "Because sometimes strangers are easier to tell," he said gently. He glanced back at his table, where the older couple was watching with interest. "Listen, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to join us? My parents and we're celebrating my dad's birthday. My mother always orders enough food for an army. And Chloe seems quite convinced you need company." "Please?" Chloe tugged on Victoria's hand with both of hers. "We have chocolate cake coming." Grammy always gets chocolate cake because it's Grandpa's favorite, but she lets me have some too. "You can have some of mine." Victoria knew she should decline politely, go home to her empty apartment, maybe call Rachel to vent about yet another failed attempt at dating. But something about this little girl's earnest face, about the genuine kindness in the father's eyes, made her pause. When was the last time someone had simply wanted her company? Not because she fit certain criteria, but just because she was human and hurting? "If you're sure I wouldn't be intruding," she said softly. "Not at all," the man assured her. "I'm Daniel Morrison, by the way. And this is Chloe, as you've probably gathered." As they walked to Daniel's table, Chloe kept hold of Victoria's hand. chattering about the Christmas decorations, her new teddy bear, and how Grandpa was turning 65, which was really old, but not as old as dinosaurs. Daniel's parents, Eleanor and Robert Morrison, welcomed Victoria with the kind of easy warmth that suggested they'd raise their son well. Eleanor, a silver-haired woman with laugh lines and a gentle smile, simply made space without asking questions. Robert, wearing a birthday button Chloe had obviously made for him, offered a handshake and said, "Any friend of Chloe's is a friend of ours." Over dinner, Victoria found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. Daniel explained, in response to his mother's gentle prompting, that his wife had passed away 2 years earlier, an aneurysm, sudden and devastating. He'd been raising Chloe on his own ever since, balancing his work as an architect with single parenthood. Some days are harder than others, he admitted, his voice low so Chloe, who was showing Eleanor her teddy bear, wouldn't hear. She asked about her mother constantly. "I try to keep the memories alive, but there's only so much a father can do. She misses having a mom." Victoria's heart ached for this little family. She told them about her work at the children's hospital, about the joy of helping young patients heal, about how it filled some of the emptiness in her own life. Chloe's eyes grew wide with interest. "You help sick kids get better? Like a superhero?" "Sort of like that," Victoria smiled. "I read them stories and bring them juice boxes and make sure they get their medicine." "I love stories," Chloe announced. "Daddy reads to me every night, but sometimes he falls asleep before the ending because he's tired from work." Daniel had the grace to look sheepish. "In my defense, some of those books are very long." The evening passed in a warm blur of conversation and laughter. Eleanor shared embarrassing stories about Daniel's childhood. Robert told terrible dad jokes that made Chloe giggle. Victoria felt herself unwinding, the earlier rejection fading into background noise against this unexpected kindness. When the chocolate cake arrived, Chloe insisted on sitting next to Victoria. As they shared a slice, the little girl studying Victoria with those serious blue eyes, something shifted in the air. "Are you still sad?" Chloe asked quietly. "Not anymore," Victoria answered honestly. "You and your family have made me feel much better." Chloe considered this, taking another bite of cake. Then, with the matter-of-fact tone that only small children can manage, she asked, "Do you have kids?" "No, sweetheart. I don't." "Do you want kids?" Victoria felt her throat tighten. It was the question she'd been avoiding for 3 years, the one that hurt most to answer. "I did once. I always thought I would. But things didn't work out that way." Chloe nodded as if this made perfect sense. Then she set down her fork and turned to face Victoria fully. "My daddy is lonely too. I can tell because sometimes he looks sad when he thinks I'm not looking. And I don't have a mommy anymore, which makes me sad sometimes even though daddy tries really hard." "Chloe, honey," Daniel started, clearly mortified. But Chloe wasn't finished. With the blunt honesty of childhood, she asked, "Can you be my new mom?" The restaurant seemed to go silent. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Robert looked like he was trying not to smile. Daniel's face had gone red, and Victoria felt tears streaming down her cheeks before she could stop them. She knelt down beside Chloe's chair, bringing herself to eye level with this extraordinary little girl. "Oh, sweetheart. Being someone's mom is a very special thing. It's not something that happens quickly. But you're nice," Chloe said, as if this settled everything. "And you're sad like Daddy, which means you could make each other happy. And you work with kids, so you already know how to be a mom. It makes sense." Victoria couldn't help but laugh through her tears. "You are absolutely right that it makes sense. But your daddy and I just met. We're strangers." "Then be not strangers first," Chloe said simply. "That's what Daddy says about making friends. First you're strangers, then you talk, then you're friends." Daniel had finally recovered enough to speak. "I am so sorry. Chloe, you can't just ask people to be your mother." "Why not? You're always saying I should ask for what I need. I need a mom. She needs a family. It's perfect." She stumbled slightly over the word, but delivered it with complete conviction. Victoria looked up at Daniel and saw her own astonishment reflected back at her, mixed with something else. Hope, maybe? Or possibility. The kind of tentative recognition that happens when two people realize they might have found something unexpected. "I should probably explain," Daniel said, running a hand through his